So, what is your name now? Do you go by Dr. Downey?
No, Leona Downey.
You're Leona Downey.
Occasionally, Anna likes to call me Dr. Leona if I do workshops at the studio that are kind of medically oriented, just so people know that's my background. But
Okay.
I always prefer people call me Leona anyway.
Yeah. You're definitely a doctor. That'll always be with you.
Yeah.
You carry that knowledge around.
Of course, and yeah, like it is a big part of my past, my training, the way I see the world too. It's all still a big part of how I think about things.
Right. So here we are in beautiful Puerto Vallarta. I'm saying it wrong. How do you say it?
Puerto Vallarta.
Puerto Vallarta. I got to get my
You got
R's
it.
right or
You
something.
got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. So this is the new life for you. And you have inspired me as a doctor when you were working on me. You've inspired me with your passion, and you've touched me with your passion in the medical field. And now you've changed that, and you're reaching women and inspiring them through your new life and through yoga. Have you captured or understood or thought about the intensity and the magnitude of your touching women's lives? Have you thought about that?
I guess I don't think about it very much, but when you say it, I realize, how true it is. Especially, I guess, now having gone through breast cancer myself, I understand what an important role that is. The person that you sort of trust to lead you through your therapy, to direct your therapy, to make decisions for you or help you make decisions as you're going through your treatment. Like the example I told you yesterday about when I needed a blood transfusion, and I thought, I'm just going to tough it out, but my doctor here said, no, you need a transfusion. So I sort of realize a little bit more now after having been sick myself how important that role is. And then, I guess, I'm relatively new into the yoga teaching part of it, and really kind of reaching out to share that, experience, that practice, all of that with women who've been through breast cancer. So that's a little bit new for me. So, but what I hope to do is to inspire people to see how much the practice can do for us, how empowering it is, how good it is for our bodies, how good it is for our minds, our spirits, and the whole package. So I guess maybe I've always thought when people are really passionate about something, you can feel that sort of coming out of them, and maybe that's what your feeling is. You can see how deeply affected I am by all of it, and hopefully that comes across to people.
I think it's coming across to people, and it came across prior to you getting breast cancer. In my opinion, you were very compassionate and very, I guess a layman's term would say, had wonderful bedside manner. I'm curious to where that came from. Who filled you in order to give to all of us? Who was your mentor, or who gave that example to you?
I think some of that is just personality. It's funny, I'm not good at talking about myself, but I think my whole life I've been kind of like a helper kind of person, and so it's just part of who I am. I want to help everybody with whatever it is that they're going through, but certainly I had teachers and mentors in school. Like anything, when you're learning something, you can watch different people do it, and you can say, that's not so good, that's not the way I want to do it, or that doesn't seem to be working well. You can watch and learn. So I had mentors, and I think about this now in the context of yogic learning. I had mentors that taught me what I didn't want to do, the way I didn't think medicine ought to be delivered, and then mentors that taught me the way that I thought it should be done. One particular mentor of mine was my mentor at the University of Arizona, who's a breast cancer specialist named Bob Livingston, and he was, he's since passed away, but he was a brilliant doctor with a giant heart, and so people like that you learn to emulate, I guess.
I think you emulate it very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's one of the questions I had for you is, you pretty much answered it right now, but it doesn't seem like when you go for a cold or urgent care, it doesn't seem like love is in the medical field in the sense that it's not in the syllabus. But you definitely have learned it and have passed it on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think being a medical doctor, it's such a human position, because patients, no matter what they're going through, but definitely when they're going through serious or life-threatening things, they need that human connection. They don't need you to just pick the right medicine, which that's important, that you know what to do. But I think, helping people through it is, or should be, a big part of it. So
right,
that was always important to me.
Right. So I'm off camera and my voice is probably on here way stronger than yours. I regret not having a mic for you. But somewhere along the line I'll throw in that, I had breast cancer, and it was, you answered it already, but I want to just briefly touch on it in this flow. So I had breast cancer, and a person who's not in the medical field doesn't know anything about breast cancer. So the word cancer alone is shocking. Breast cancer is shocking. It's a jolt to the system. And you really walked me through step by step medically, and then explained it the way I could understand it. But you also explained it in a sense that it calms me, and everything you spoke about in your explanation, there was an undertone of, we got this, we're going to get this. And I was diagnosed with HER2 positive, and later on you had mentioned 2016. You also, is that correct? 2016?
Yes.
You got diagnosed with the same cancer strain, breast cancer strain. And I went into it knowing nothing, but you went into it knowing everything. What was your thought process when you heard that you had HER2 positive?
Yeah, so I think about it sort of in two different ways. In a way, I felt like my experience and my background was a huge blessing, because I knew what to expect. I knew that even though it was a nasty cancer, that the treatments were so good, and I had seen people like you get through it, and I knew that it was probably curable.
Probably.
Right. So it's, you never know.
Right.
Because not everybody's cured of breast cancer. So I certainly also had the fear, because I also in my career, saw people who weren't cured, and saw what that looked like. So, in a way, I felt like my background was a blessing, because I think knowledge is power, and the more you're kind of aware of exactly what's happening and what the steps are going to be, the more empowered you feel. Like, okay, I know what to do, and I know what the side effects of the chemo are going to be, and what medicines to take for all that. So in that way, my knowledge really helped. But in another way, knowing all of the worst case scenario things that could go wrong, was scary. And still, when I, have follow-up, or I'm going in for a test, I know the bad things that could happen, so that's still there.
Right.
Yeah, so I think a bit of both. I think probably in the bigger way, when I was diagnosed, I thought, well, if anybody's prepared to have breast cancer, I guess it's me. So I felt some comfort in that way. Also in that I felt like I had friends, my old friends and colleagues who ended up being doctors of mine. I felt like I knew who to trust and who was a good doctor, who had the right bedside manner and had that, those human touch things that make the experience a little easier. So, yeah, I guess.
I think for me, you said a little easier. I think it makes an immense difference, not a little. I think it's very, very important.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, do you agree with that?
No, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
I think, and I'm not into as much as you the yoga or the deeper side, but I think mind has a lot to do with it, and the way you look at stuff.
Totally.
And what do you think about how your perception, and did you said, you had good doctors, did you seek them out or were they given to you?
I think a little bit of both. There's only one doctor here in Puerto Vallarta who gives chemotherapy, so she was the option that I had, but it turned out that she is a fantastic, very human doctor, so I was lucky in that way. The doctors that I worked with in Tucson, I chose because I knew people there and I kind of knew who I thought was the best, so I was lucky that way. But I think you're right. I think the perception of the experience is a huge deal, and I think that goes back to what you were saying about how maybe I helped you when you were first diagnosed and you were going through everything. The fear is the worst, almost the worst part of it, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing if you're going to die. So if you can just hear, we have treatment for this, this is what's going to happen, this is what you're going to go through, it may not be fun, it's going to suck, but it's going to work, and lots of other women have gone through it before you. And so being able to turn from, I'm scared to death and I have no idea what to expect and I think cancer means death, to, okay, cancer means I have to have this treatment and I'm going to lose my hair, but I'm going to be okay. I think that makes all the difference in kind of being able to change the way you're thinking about it from being hysterical to feeling a little bit empowered yourself. Like, okay, this is what I need to do, and this is how it's going to feel, and it's going to be hard, but I can get through it. So yeah, I think perception is huge, and attitudes, thinking about your breast cancer experience as, something that you can learn something from, something that might change you in good ways. I think when you first get diagnosed and when you're first going through surgery and chemo, you think, and I was this way too, you think these changes are awful. I hate being bald. I feel sick. I don't like the way people look at me like, are you sick or what's wrong with you? So it's hard at first, but then when you realize, wow, I'm learning so much, I'm growing so much as a human being through this experience. And I used to hear people say this and I thought, that's so out there, like you almost develop this gratitude for your really tough experience. And I have
I understand. I do too.
Yeah.
The people I just met, we talked about living each day and being so grateful. And it's changes your perspective.
Yeah, so it's something that, it's funny, I remember it from my patients when I was practicing. I always thought, and I said this to people all the time, cancer patients are so amazing because they really know how to live, and they know like what to value in life. And what's the little stuff, you know? After you've gone through something truly life-threatening, then, you know, little stuff just doesn't get to you as much, or you, except traffic, like we've joked about. But in general, I think it shifts your perspective about life and values, and, you know, how do you want to spend your time? You know, do you want to do things that, like, you know, you have a burning desire to do that fill your heart, that fill your soul, or do you want to, you know, have like an 8-to-5 job and try to make more money? You know, so I think it changes the way you live, everything.
Well, you answered two of the questions I was going to ask. What is cancer changed? How has it changed your perspective? And you answered that without me asking. And I was going to ask, and it would sound like a lighthearted question, and you already answered it also, but I was going to ask you from a medical point of view. You know the symptoms that everyone's going to experience, and hair loss is one of them, and you know that with your mind, but you already answered it, and I could see that it really moved you. It was a different experience to actually going through that.
Yeah.
And when you realized, I am going to go bald, what was your thought prior to getting cancer and going bald? Did you ever think it would be such an intense process?
I guess I did, because I watched so many women do it, and I saw how it affected them. When I first, you know, realized I had cancer and what type it was, and that I was going to need the aggressive chemo, I think I didn't think about the hair loss as much at first, and I shaved my head, and I was kind of into it, and I thought, okay, this is fine, you know, my head's kind of cute and round, and I thought, it's okay. But it was kind of over a little time that it started to get to me. And I feel like I'm not a person who's super attached to my appearance, but you realize how much you are that you don't know. Our culture, you know, places so much importance on appearance, and when there's not really anything you can do about it, it's a bigger deal kind of than you realize.
I agree. I felt the same way.
Yeah.
I didn't think I thought it was no big deal. I thought that was going to be the least, like, who cares about hair?
Right.
And it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
It was, I didn't, and I know I don't get my hair cut often. I never color it. And then to lose it, I had realized through it, my learning through it was that I hid behind it.
Yeah.
And I had long hair, and it's definitely a different chapter in the cancer book. It's
Yeah.
a whole chapter.
Yeah, it is, and it's kind of realizing how much your view of yourself relates to what other people see.
Right.
You know,
Because if we didn't have mirrors and people couldn't see us, it wouldn't matter.
it wouldn't matter, right?
Right.
It was actually kind of easier. Showering was way easier.
I
you
thought
know?
so too. I'm like, I never even use shampoo. It's just soap everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it turns into a bigger deal than you realize it's going to be. It was for me too.
So I know the answer, but if I'm hoping to share this video with somebody, what is the next chapter for Leona Downey?
Yeah, so, you know, when I retired before I had cancer, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. All I knew was I wanted to spend a little more time taking care of myself, you know, being healthier, you know, doing yoga, things that made me feel good. I wanted to spend a little less time, like, constantly running. You know, my husband and I used to joke and say we're jumping off the hamster wheel. Like, I think in my old life, although a lot, you know, my job was very rewarding and I loved it, I felt like I was on a hamster wheel. Constantly running to the next accomplishment, the next diploma, you know, the next amount of money I could earn, a new car, new pair of shoes. And I thought, like, I just want off of that. I want to put that down. So we moved here and just totally changed our life to a quiet, simple life. And I'm still soaking that up, you know, and loving that. And then I think it was through my own cancer experience and my own kind of growing yoga practice, both before and after my cancer, that I realized I think my next purpose in life is to teach yoga to women who've had breast cancer and share everything that I've learned so that other people can have those benefits too. Sorry about all of this.
I just want to tell you, I'm so grateful that you were in my intersection to meet you. I'm so thankful and grateful that you were my doctor. But I'm also so thankful to be included in the beginning of your next journey.
Thank you, and having you here has made it so much better. If I'd had a bunch of strangers in my first yoga for breast cancer workshop, it would have had a totally different feel, and it was really it made it so much cooler and more enriched to have you here for it. So thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I know it's a big deal,
Yeah.
like to fly to a different country and
Yeah.
come by yourself, but it was super amazing to have you here. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for the time to do this for me, or for, I don't know what this is for, but thank you for that. And namaste.
Namaste.